Welcome to Go For Your Life. It's a podcast presented by me, Caro, and my sweet dog Sparky. He's my co-host. 16 years old, people, but still co-hosting. Yes. The podcast is about everything for everyone. Basically, a very broad variety of guests. And we really are here to inspire you, encourage you, to just live your life, to go for your life, to have a great life and to reach your goals. And how do you do that? You get inspired by other people. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. Please tell your friends about it and support me in this lovely journey, which is my favorite thing to do, podcasting. Thank you very much for listening. Welcome back to another episode of Go For Your Life. So we are back with new episodes. We had a bit of a break, but here we are again. And this episode is with lovely Bobbi from the Positive Lamb Foundation. She's a good friend, and it was a lovely, lovely chat. What is really important is while we were recording this episode, I didn't know yet, but I am now part of her Positive Lamb Foundation track. So we're actually going to do a fundraiser. We're going to walk about 21 kilometers all through London. And all of that work, so all of that tracking and this event is because we want to raise money for her beautiful foundation, the Positive Lamb Foundation. So we're raising money for children living with HIV in India. And we're trying to help send 75 children to school for a whole year. And of course, everything that they would need for that. So I'm trying to raise 500 euros. That's my goal on the 15th of June. We're going to do this in London. So please support me. The link will be in the show notes, and support Bobbi and her wonderful, wonderful foundation. And just enjoy this lovely chat we had a while back, just before we actually met in India, because we spent some time in India in February, March. So have a lovely listen. Yes, welcome back to another episode of Go For Your Life. And if anyone knows, if someone really knows how to go for her life, it's Bobbi. Bobbi, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Caro. It's like, I love that I get to just spend a little bit of time with you right now. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's really sweet. And we have a connection from Amsterdam to India. India, of all places. Yay. So special. So special. And I love that you're back, because I mean, the last time you were on the podcast was very much like, oh, let's quickly do a podcast, because I really wanted to promote your cause at the time, and me doing a fundraiser for your cause. And but of course, like, there's so much more to talk about. So I definitely want to talk about your cause and the good work you do for the world and the children of India. But definitely also, let's start with Bobbi. Hello, Bobbi. So welcome back. So let's just get straight into it. How are you? What's life been like for, I mean, we're now in 1st of February. How has 24 been treating you? How are you?
2024 so far has been good. Like, I don't know if, well, I mean, you were just saying before we started recording that you do mind maps at the beginning of the year. I like to like set a word for the year.
Oh,
and
nice.
This year my word was simplicity. Okay, I actually picked 2 words, simplicity and contentment. And I was like, I want to simplify, and yet like my life is very full, and that's how it feels. But that's a good thing. And then I have to practice that contentment piece, which means if it's full now, it's all good. It'll slow down later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when you say that contentment, like being content with the fact that it is full.
Exactly. Or just like in general, actually, I got really inspired from that one verse in Patanjali where it says about contentment, that, or the one translation that I have, it says, inner contentment unfolds supreme happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love that as like a mantra for the year,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
No, I think happiness starts with contentment first. And and also what you said about, I think I just have an amazing coach now that I work with, and she was saying, like, everything starts at self-reflection. So I think, like, giving yourself those 2 words for the year and like taking a moment to self-reflect will definitely put everything else into place, you know, like what it is that you want.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, and I also feel like pretty blessed in my life to have this, like, even though it's full and everything, I have the space. I've created a kind of environment that is conducive to self-reflection and,
yeah,
you know, having a little more space in my life to work on those things or observe those things at play, you know?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's also when you say your life is full, like what do you mean? Like is it full because you just have a lot of things to do, or like is it all your different because you do a lot of different things and you travel travel between countries, you know, like that's another thing, of course. So how let's unpack the fullness. Like what do you mean with your life is full?
Yeah, well, I think that I trying to redirect language instead of because I kind of can say, oh, I feel busy and let it be possibly like have a negative connotation in my mind. So and I'm like, okay, it's full. And
Yeah.
I do have a lot of things going on. And I know we were actually just talking about this before too, that to actually it's so important to have space for ourselves. And one thing of be when I am in India, I have a place here that it is easier to have space for myself. And yet I also managed to fill my program with like so much stuff. You know, I'm here and living in an ashram, so we have daily programs and then trying to do my teaching, do my own study, do my podcast, working in the community, doing charity work.
Mhm.
It's like a lot, but it's all things that I love. So
Yeah.
it's like, and I know you know this feeling of like when you're doing something that you love, then like it you can do more and more and more, and then suddenly it's like, oh shit, like I have a lot
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
on. You
Ah.
know? But it's like a good
Um,
problem to have.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think
Yeah.
what I've been saying a lot here is like when people ask me, so how are you? I'm like, yeah, lots going on, no complaints, just blessings. You know? Like that's what it is, you know, like it's I think it's also a blessing to live the lives that we live, you know, like it's and I think that the way you live and the way I see you live your life is so amazing because you really live in that like in the blessing, in the gratitude, in the you know you sort of embody that as well, like this amazing gratitude for life and just you know and the humbleness of it as well, you know, like I really appreciate that in you and I value that, you know, because it's just uh all through you, you know, it's in you.
Hmm.
So
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
yeah,
But I think that's also like as you and I both know, that sense of blessedness or of just living in a space of appreciation, it kind of unfolds as we continue unfolding our own sadhana and our own
yeah,
yoga.
yeah,
It's like you can't help but recognize the blessedness of a whole incarnation as like we do
yeah,
this work.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so it's kind of like it's unfolds like that, you know?
yeah,
And then sometimes it's like, you know, life pulls the rug out from under and it's like I don't feel that blessedness or that appreciation.
yeah.
Uh and then it comes back, you know? That's why
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
so
yeah,
amazing
yeah.
to have.
Totally, totally,
Yeah.
totally. Because for those of you, I mean, I will definitely put a link in this episode for people to listen to the old episode, like the other episode that you were on, because it's also very inspiring. But I'd love to jump back in time and talk to people about your old life, which was a very different life, and how I mean, you've been through a few transformations, I would say, that are huge. But I mean, you were kind of in like corporate fashion industry world, right? Like when you lived your past life.
Yeah, it is interesting, like, you know, transformations. I feel like, you know, I'm not even 40 and I've had like so many
Yeah,
incarnations already, like in one incarnation.
yeah,
But yeah, I used to work as a wardrobe stylist and yeah, I used to like I grew up on a cattle ranch and I just never I was always into yoga since I was in university because I studied dance in university and I have scoliosis. So one of my professors had said you should go to yoga and I was like, sure. And I remember that first class like feeling in shavasana and I was like something happened there, but it wasn't until I'd been practicing yoga for like 10 years amongst the many other lives that I had lived, that I actually came to India and met my teacher and really started to unfold like the deeper aspects of yoga. And that's, I think, when my life did like a 360 and changed completely. Like who I was, it's like I have my life is basically separated now from before I met my teacher and
Yeah.
after I met my teacher, because I never could have imagined that, I would now be living part of the year in India and,
Yeah.
being sober and being a vegan and doing charity work from like this like city girl, fashion girl, fake eyelashes,
Yeah.
bleached hair, like honey, living her best life to now
Yeah.
being like, who was that? Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
all praises to you, girl, but who was that?
Yeah. And I mean, do you have times where you reflect back on it, like, whoa, that was a very different life, or that was a very different me? Like, are there times where you think about, or have you really left it behind you and you're just on your path now? And
So it comes up from time to time,
yeah.
like going through um difficult times with like mental health and sobriety and
Mhm.
like those kind of like, switching jobs and that and moving cities and things like those external changes for me have always been really easy. Like I
Yeah.
have a natural inclination to feel like free to just do whatever, but the inner changes
Mhm.
that have happened
Yeah. Good point.
since coming onto a spiritual path, those have been really difficult. And we forget that we go through such huge changes, and then for me anyways, I can feel like sometimes, on my path and my sadhana and my understanding of what it means to be human, sometimes I can get like hard on myself, like I should be a better yogi, I should be doing something
Mhm.
different. And then actually when I reflect back at like how far I've come, even in my inner processing of the world, like getting affected and reacting to situations and dealing with pain and things like that, it's like, no, I'm slowly transforming, but it's nice
Mhm.
to look back on our paths and recognize where we've done good work and
Yeah.
evolved.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, because I think probably many people are living that life that you're describing, right? Like that life that you had when you were in your wardrobe fashion, you know, life, I guess. Um, and do you feel like, did you, was it like a sort of overnight, okay, I'm gonna change my life, I'm done? Or was there like what, like did something trigger that change in you? Because I think what I certainly come across, a lot of people are asking me these questions about like, yeah, but I mean, how do I live? How do I change my life? How can I just, make the call to leave? Because you were also, I'm sure you were financially in a very good way, or in a good place,
Hmm.
when you do that kind of work. So what made you really just, transform that and leave it behind?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like sometimes I do think back, like, oh, if I was still doing, because I was doing mostly commercial wardrobe styling, which pays like so well. And I was thinking like in the past years, as I've approached very difficult financial times, thinking like, what would my life be like if I just stayed there? But then it's like it's so clear that like I would have money, but I would be so miserable. And
Yeah,
for
yeah,
me at this point in my life, like there's no price I can put on freedom
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
and that kind of life. But I was actually I had left Toronto where I was working, and I had gone to Australia to start to work in fashion and wardrobe styling there. And my friend and I, we were like building our names up in Toronto, and we thought we're gonna go to Australia, to Sydney, and they're just gonna all want us to work for them. And guess what? We got there and nobody cared about us. We couldn't get jobs. I started bartending. My friend I went there with, she went back to Canada. And I was so depressed. I was so miserable. I was like in the depths of like drugs and alcohol and like really, really suffering. And I remember I went to the Buddhist center there, and every Buddhist center in the world has free meditation sessions. And I went, I'm like, I need to learn how to meditate. Like, I think this is my answer. And like, I just remember like being so uneasy in my mind. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, I had a really good friend. She was a kind of a good friend. A good friend in the sense we had a deep connection, but I didn't know her very well, that I'd met in Toronto, and she had said she was going to visit her aunt in India, and that had been like 3 years. So she had been living in India for 3 years. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember I called her from Sydney and I was like crying. I was like, I'm so unhappy. Like, there's just I wish I was in a different country, like on the floor in the airport crying. Like there was something in me that just wanted to like start over. Like I was
Yeah.
so bound in my own kind of suffering.
Yeah.
And she was like, "We'll come to India." And I was like, "Oh no, I can't go to India. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not an advanced traveler. I don't want to go there." Like, long story short, she got me this kind of job here up in the north, like working in a clothing kind of market for these like bougie Delhi travelers that would come to the north, like in the hot summers in Delhi, they come to the mountains.
Yeah.
And it was this kind of whole scene. So I came to India like with like $800. I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna go." And I remember just like rocking up to Delhi. As you know, you've been there. It's like,
Yeah, it's insane.
it's so insane. And my friend was like, "Oh, you just catch the bus." And I remember like in India, if you try to catch the bus, you get the message and it's like, "Catch the bus on Highway 5 behind the petrol station
Yeah.
next to the post office." And you're like, "What?"
Yeah.
Anyways, so I get up here to northern India, to Himachal Pradesh is the state. And I met my friend, and like right away, the first thing I asked her was like, "Do you know somewhere where I can do yoga, practice meditation?" And she was like, "Well, actually, I stay in an ashram like an hour from here." And I was like, I didn't even know what an ashram was. I was like, "Okay, what's that?" And she's like, "And we have a teacher." And she started reading to me like the notes from the satsang. Satsang is the
Yeah.
daily discourse. And I just started crying and I was like, "What is this? Like, this, whatever you're reading to me is like the answer that I've been looking for, that I didn't know I was looking for."
Yeah.
And so every Sunday visitors could come. So on the Sunday I came to the ashram, and I was really overwhelmed because I was like, "What is this place?" And I met SWAMI SHYAM, who's my teacher, my guru, and it was just like an instant recognition of a self-realized being that really was started in the satsang, was sharing about what is yoga. And I had been studying yoga for like 10 years at this time, and I had no understanding of like the deeper aspects, and it all just like resonated so deeply with me. And it was like in that moment, like my whole perception of the world and what is happiness and what is suffering and who I am at the core just changed completely. And that was almost, in May it'll be 10 years. So that
Wow.
was kind of like the catalyst. And now I have the language to know that that suffering that some people feel so deeply is that divine uneasiness. It's the disillusionment with the world for those people that have such a deeper sense that there's something more than simply this mind and the world
Yeah.
that reflects
Yeah.
individuality at me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that, in a nutshell, was what brought me onto this.
Wow. It's really amazing. And it's amazing that it's a decade ago, Bobby. So really this year, that's a big year for you then also. 10 years
Yeah,
of this place, this belonging that you've come to, you know?
yeah,
Really
definitely.
beautiful. And for
Hmm.
people who are listening who don't know, I always, of course, I always talk about ashrams. Like, yeah, I was in an ashram because I lived in an ashram, as you know, and I've had a lot of experiences with ashrams, but some people don't. So, what is an ashram?
An ashram is a spiritual center, a spiritual space where people can gather. And like I only know from the ashrams that I've stayed in India that are more based around yoga, or the ashram I stay in is a meditation ashram based in Advaita Vedanta, which is the Vedic philosophy of non-dualism.
Yeah,
So each and every center has its own teacher or teachings that people follow and practice.
yeah,
And yeah, I think it can get, for people from the West, it kind of has a different connotation than say in a place like India, where ashrams are so commonplace and these kinds of spiritual communities are more highly valued in society, where, you know, sometimes in the West, we value more corporate, more individuality, whereas like spirituality is kind of something that happens separately, privately at home or in a church.
Yeah.
Whereas in ashrams in India, anyways, it's more normal to have to stay in an ashram and to have a deeply spiritual element of your life that's kind of just normal.
Yeah, and I think everything you experience in an ashram is spiritual. You know, like from getting up in the morning to doing your meditation, if you do any yoga, but also like, you know, I mean, I definitely felt that because I, you know, cooked in a lot of ashrams where you like, you know, you're cooking the food and everything has like such a spiritual element that everything is very spiritual there. And yeah, I really love it. And I'm happy for you. I'm really happy for you that you got that experience, you know, because I mean, specifically also that depression that you're in Australia, I think a lot of people experience this, you know, and I don't know, I really feel for people, specifically also for people who suffer and really struggle with addiction. I think it's hard to see any way out, you know, like that's the only way. It's the only way to live. And I sometimes feel, well, one, I'm really grateful that I've never become addicted to anything. And I've had a lot of people around me that have, and unfortunately lost friends to it. But also that I have gotten something in my life that I was like, oh wow, you know, like I don't have to be depressed because I have this yoga or I have this, you know, spiritual journey. That's kind of, I don't know, like I think it's specifically when times are hard. I don't know if you experience that as well, and that's something that I really want to share with the listeners as well. Like when times are hard, if you have a sort of spiritual connection, it makes you stronger. You know, it makes you also deal with certain situations. You're preparing yourself. Like every yoga practice, you're letting go of a lot of shit and you're preparing yourself for when something does happen that is quite, you know, severe or difficult to handle. You know a little bit more how to engage with that experience. Don't you feel that, Bobby?
I do. And I feel like for me, my sobriety journey was so supported by my yoga practice, my meditation practice.
Yeah.
And I'm a facilitator for something called Y12SR, which is yoga of the 12 steps. And it's an amazing philosophy or teaching. It's an organization started in the US by an incredible woman called Nikki Myers. And she is in her 70s. She's been sober for like 40 years. And she also got attracted to the teachings of yoga and really has found a way to take the teachings of the 12 steps and the teachings of yoga, different scriptures, primarily Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and bring them together. And for me, it was something that was so incredible because when I came into sobriety, I was already practicing yoga and I felt like such a loser. I felt like such a bad yogi. I'm like, I should have overcome this by now. But actually, when we look at what is the system of yoga and then another system such as the 12 steps, it's like, what does each and every person wish for on this life? It's for wholeness and happiness. And wholeness can be revealed. It's not even something we have to get. It's in yoga, it's uncovered that we're already whole. And that's the same with the 12 steps. And
Yeah.
when we look at people with addictions, which addiction exists on a spectrum, it exists in all aspects of society, and it's totally on a spectrum.
Yeah.
And for most people that are facing addictions, it's reaching externally for something to feel that sense of wholeness.
Yeah.
So I think that's why the practices of yoga are so helpful for addiction, because it reminds us again and again that we are already perfect and whole, that we just have to integrate all parts of ourselves, you know, and yeah, it's just like a full system for that. So
It's
I think
beautiful. Now we have to
yeah.
share. I have to share that link in the show notes as well. And I think, I mean, our teacher Stewart, he once also he's done a workshop series at the time actually of yoga and addiction, and he was even saying that like for him because he's also an addict, you know, and he was sort of saying like, yeah, the yoga will get in the way of the addiction, not the other way around. because, you know, you get so much into yoga that, you know, also that it's, and of course it's also a very good discipline to have, you know. So I think that that's definitely something like, you know, your I think it's a beautiful way of bringing the 12 steps together in a yoga um yeah, perspective, but also in a yoga method, you know, like that's really lovely.
Mhm.
It's great.
Yeah, I did that workshop with Stu also, and it was so sweet because he used the book. Russell Brand did like a book
Yeah,
on the 12 steps, and
yeah,
every chapter is like stand up for your fucking shit, like face
yeah,
your fucking shit. Everything is like a swear in
yeah,
it
yeah,
all. And
yeah. That's
the
very
perfect
Stewart.
book for Stu to bring to a yoga workshop. I was
Yeah.
like, I love it.
But I think that's important. I think it's like that's what I love about Stuart. Also, my other teacher Mick from Sydney. You know, he was always extremely open. Like, hey man, I've been an addict. I was a junkie. I was in prison. I've been, you know, like all these people I've been. You know, because Mick was also a person who would really like explain to people like, yeah, look at me now. I'm now a director of a yoga studio. But once I was this person and this person and this person, to also like think about like not to be so judgmental about it, because we all have a story, we all come from somewhere. And I mean, I have definitely you know, I'm always amazed with you know, like how far people can come, and you know what people go through, you know. And I feel for people suffering and people struggling and like just not knowing a way out, and or only knowing a way out that is necessarily that is very bad for them, you know. But you know, you just don't know any better. It's also how you grow up. What are you people, the people around you doing? What were your mom and dad doing? You know, like it's so, we're so conditioned on so many ways, you know. um and I don't think addiction is not just drug and alcohol, man. Like, you know, there's plenty of addictions out there that are, you know, less obvious, you know, but that are also like, for example, in Holland, there's a lot of talk about gambling addiction because there's a law now in the Netherlands that is allowing online gambling. And it's really triggering a lot of young people with, you know, already gambling addictions and stuff. And it's just interesting where you just go like, wow. And it's the same with drinking, you know, like drinking is like a cool thing to do, and there's alcohol always around you, and people can even drink on the street here. And I always think like, wow, that's really not so great. You know, like if that's something that you already are really struggling with, it's such a part of society. So I think it's really good when we can overcome something as strong as that with yoga, you know.
It's
Or
so true because like society and the world will always have like a lowest hanging fruit for our busy monkey minds to want to
Mhm.
grab onto. And like the monkey mind is the nature of the mind, and it also exists on a spectrum that
Yeah,
some people, those people that are, you know, and a lot of people that are addicts are people that have a really strong innate sense inside of them of a deep spiritual channel, but they have nowhere to place that energy, to
yeah,
put that attention. So of course, if the world doesn't make sense and you have a deep disillusionment that there has to be something more, and yet you can't see that there's anything more, it
mhm,
only makes sense for to keep the mind is actually very brilliant. It does what it does to keep you alive. And if you're suffering so much inside, that something like numbing yourself out on online gambling or drugs or alcohol or
yeah,
sex or phone or whatever it is that everybody is people get addicted to, it's like it kind of it makes sense that unless you have someone or something or a catalyst which turns your attention towards a deeper introspection of who you are at the core, it's an isolating, like sad world. It can be for so many people. Like you said, if you have those conditions and you don't have supportive people around you to reflect that, then it's like it is quite sad. And I think it's so beautiful when you're expressing, because I know you're such a compassionate person, but you know, that's also a rare quality. And if we could all just look at one another with a little bit more of that compassion, that you know, one mind can never know another mind,
yeah,
and yet we all have this same similar mechanism, and we can meet each other with that kind of compassion. That an addict doesn't mean you're a bad or wrong person. It means you
yeah,
don't have an avenue to find what you're looking for. And
yeah,
we all want happiness. That's what we
yeah.
all want. You know?
Well, I mean, I think sometimes also like, I think we need to catch ourselves in the judging as well. Like, I will share a little story with you, Bobby. You're probably gonna really laugh or relate to this. I was teaching in London, and in London I teach for this specific community classes, right? So you get a lot of people from the community, they get free classes. So many of these people that come there do actually struggle with, you know, some kind of addiction or have mental problems, or, you know, and you are sort of also aware that you're teaching to that's your audience, you know what I mean? And I love it because there, to me, that's yoga. That you can give yoga to the people who actually need it, not the posh, white, rich housewives, you know what I mean? I mean, bless them as well, but you know what I mean? I just felt like this is true yoga, you know. And I remember this guy was there, and he looked semi-drunk and he smelled like alcohol, you know. And I remember just looking at him going, please don't come to my class. Like, I straight away judged him. Like, I looked at him like, no, I don't want that. I don't want that guy in my class. You know, he's probably drunk. He's probably, you know, he's obviously like really like this judgment of like, he obviously has an alcohol problem. I'm not going to deal. I don't want to deal with this, you know? And then he did come to class, and he was like, I did my talk in the beginning, and I talked a little bit about yoga, and I remember saying something about yoga and how much yoga meant to me, and he just stood up and went, hallelujah, you know, like, I'm here for it, you know. And then he had such a good practice, and he was really in it, and he was really like, you know, like going for it. And then at the end of the class, he came up to me, like not even asking me, just giving me the biggest hug ever, and just looking me in the eyes, like, man, that is the best class I've ever had. Thank you so much for this. I need this so much. And then he was asking me if I was Dutch, and that his dad was half Dutch, and then he showed me his cute little doggy, and you know, like we had this amazing connection. And to this day, we are friends. We are really close. I mean, I've given him my mala that was given to me by my teacher, so he can keep me close, and I hold him close to my heart. So just to sort of explain, like, if I would have just gone with that initial judgment, I would have had a bad time. He would have had a bad time, and you know, like there was something, but he just broke it. Like he just went like, boom, I'm here, and I love your class, and it was just a really nice way of thinking. Like, yeah, why judge? You know, like it really, and I really later reflected back on it like, wow, like I had, sometimes you just have no idea, and you just have
Mm.
to, I think you need to leave your judgment at the door, specifically when you're teaching yoga, because yoga is for everyone, and everyone is welcome. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's what I find so beautiful about yoga, specifically when you teach yoga in a sort of community service setup. Yes, everyone can come, and everyone should be, how do you say, yes, get the service, you know, everyone should be
Mm-hmm.
served.
I love that story. And it's also a nice reminder, like I've not had that exact kind of a situation, but how many times my as if students have taught me something, and just the like give and take that being in yoga means, like as both a student and a teacher. Like it's just that kind of space that allows us, like we said before at the beginning, like to have that power of reflection and self-awareness that whoever comes in front of us, when we actually practice yoga, when we actually practice that oneness with those that are in front of us, like it's just our own being reflected back. And then when we know that, we can learn and watch our own system, because it
Yeah,
is like a mirror.
yeah,
And that's such a power and such a gift, and something that I've loved as I've started teaching yoga, is like how much I get to learn from my students.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely,
Mhm.
because we're all teachers and students at the same time, you know,
Yeah.
like it's, because you're always in the role of a student too, you know, like it's a very important thing. And to come back to, so 10 years ago you're there in India, and you're like, wow, this is this is it, you know, like bright light, bright light, bright light. So when did you then start your, because you have a beautiful well, is it can I say, what is it, a foundation, or it is a
It's a
foundation,
charity.
a charity, exactly.
Yeah.
Did that come like close after that, or like how did you start doing that work?
Yeah, so that happened in the same first trip. I came to India for the first time for 6 months. Shortly after, I came to the ashram and met Swamiji, my teacher, I wrote a letter asking to come and study for 3 months. So I came, and at that time I was really thinking of like, okay, what's next in my life? I cannot go back to wardrobe styling. I'll literally die.
Done.
Like, because even before I left for India, I felt like, it's so much, whatever we work at, like whatever your job is, just to exist in the world, we have to work so hard. And I was like, if I have to work this hard, I have to do something that adds some kind of value to the world. Like,
Yeah.
And so in 2014, so it's also been 10 years that the charity's been going, which is also wild to think.
Yeah.
But
Amazing.
I had this like initial idea. I had in my 6 months here and being especially primarily in one area, I'd met a lot of people in the community, like locals making textiles, knits, jewelry, different kinds of things. And I thought, and at the same time, I had started volunteering at a couple orphanages up here teaching dance. I used to be a dancer, so I was kind of finding all these like threads together, and I thought, let me just sell some of this stuff that these amazing people are making, see if we can raise a little bit of money for these few children's homes that were in the area. And my two friends were like, we want to help you with that. I was like, okay. So it just kind of happened really organically. And we just got such a good response from the people back home that were like, bought all this stuff. We like sold out of everything that we had. And I brought a big hockey bag, 2 hockey bags back to Canada to like give all the stuff. And it was very much started like that. And then it just kind of over the years, because I was very much committed to coming back to see my teacher every year, to study in the ashram. And at the same time, it was like totally perfect that I could come back. And for 5 years, we just sold jewelry. So I would go to Jaipur, make and design the jewelry, take it back, sell it, da 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 da. And it was a lot of work. And then in 2019, luckily, good timing before COVID, we decided to stop doing the jewelry and just fundraise exclusively for children with HIV, which has been like amazing. And so we got registered as a charity in Canada, which was a big like task, a big achievement that we reached. And this year we'll be getting our charity status in the UK, which is also great. Yeah.
Good, Bobbi.
So
Congratulations for that. That's amazing.
yeah, so
Good.
it's like been definitely a passion project and something that I've really put my heart into. I know in the last episode we talked about Hanuman, the post boy that made such an impact in my life, and like not only on the level of the work but on the spiritual level, he was like one of those people in my life that's a teacher and reminds me why to keep doing this work and also why to keep doing my sadhana, and how they're kind of intertwined, like
Because
like
Hanuman
just
was
like
just for the listeners, Hanuman was a young boy that you were helping who had HIV but wasn't helped, right? Like he was, and unfortunately passed away because of it in a way.
Yeah, he was denied access to healthcare because
Yeah.
of his HIV status, because of the stigma in the society.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that definitely has like been a catalyst to keep moving forward with the organization.
Yeah.
And like at the same time, also a catalyst to keep going to, keep knowing that inner peace is the only peace really that I can affect. And like, for like 2 years, I've been really obsessed with like studying and understanding peace and conflict, because the conflict in the world really bothers me, like whether it's seeing a little child suffer or like on a bigger spectrum. And like the more I explore it, the more I just realize like we can't help anybody in the world until we're beyond the need of help ourselves. And like how do
Yeah,
we get
beautiful. That's a
it's
beautiful thing to say, Bobbi.
it's
That's
through
spot
yoga.
on
Yeah.
what it is. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That really is. That's what it is. That's spot on what it is. That's really
Mm-hmm.
you should put it on a t-shirt and sell it. For
I
your
know
charity.
you'd buy it. I know
I
you'd
would
have me.
buy it. I would buy 10 of them. Give it to a lot of people. Is the charity because I nearly not dare to say it. Is the charity still called what it was called because you were going to change the name?
Yeah, so it is, but we are in the transition period. So the
Okay.
charity is technically still called Tribe of Lambs, but this
Okay.
year we'll be shifting the charity name. Will be called Positive Lamb Foundation.
Oh, I like that the
Yeah.
lamb's still in there. That's good.
Yeah, we had to keep the lamb.
Yeah.
Like it was a big, it was like renaming a baby. It was like having a
No,
baby.
it's really
The
hard.
baby turns
Yeah.
10, and then it's like now we have to rename the baby. And it was
Yeah.
like took us a year.
Yeah.
It's been a
Yeah.
lot.
No, but I mean, you also that is a process, like, and I think it's important because specifically when you're a charity, like you're also like, is what you do in the name? What is the name about? How are people gonna remember the name? Is it a, something that it needs to have like some kind of. So I get it. I really think that it took. I'm glad that you've come to a solution. You've come to a new name, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And are there any sort of ongoing projects at the moment? Because I think you do a few bigger things a year, right? With the charity. Like, is there anything happening soon?
Like fundraisers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do every June we do a big trek. So we
Yeah.
do people arrange walks all around. And then we always do a World AIDS Day fundraiser in
Yeah.
December. And otherwise we just truck along with fundraising. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
last year we launched a new pilot project helping a new group of kids and their families in Delhi. So
Mhm.
we're supporting 16 children of HIV positive sex workers and in a slum area in Northeast Delhi. So that feels really great to be able to keep the organization growing. Like we have our same ongoing project. We've been supporting the same kids for the last 9 years in Jaipur,
Mhm.
and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And we now have the second pilot project, so it's going to be for 5 years. So we hope that we'll be able to see these kids break through the cycle of poverty and sex work because
Yeah.
in a place like India, whatever your parents do, you kind of get naturally groomed into such an industry. So it's very common for these kids, even
Mhm.
if they're HIV negative, to be negatively affected by their parents' HIV status and just being associated with poverty and sex work. So we're really working together with their parents and a wonderful organization to break those cycles and help these kids hopefully have a better future.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
good, nice new project. We're really excited to be working on it.
Yeah. And I love that, what I love about your charity, it's not this one-off thing, like you're saying like, yeah, for 5 years we're going to do this, or for 9 years we've been supporting these children. So I think it's so important because I think that you also see that you see them grow up and you see them, like expand their journeys and, and you're watching it, you're witnessing it. So I think that that's also
Mhm.
a great thing. And I definitely put it in the show notes and encourage people who are listening to go check it out and give some of their money. And even if you don't have money, like just spread the word for your charity because you're doing really, really good work. And I love that it's just, it's not a massive organization. It really comes from your heart, what you're doing. And I think that always, when there's heart, there is success, you know?
Mhm.
So that is definitely something. And I mean, I felt that when I was fundraising for you, it was yeah, people were like, "What did you say? Kids with AIDS? Okay, let's go." Like so.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
yeah.
well, you really championed. You were like the best fundraiser the whole year that year. You like, yeah.
Woo! And funny enough, I was thinking at the time because I was like I didn't really know people, I didn't really have a following. Like yeah, I have friends and people that know me or something. So I was also extremely grateful how generously people were giving. And that's the thing. I think that if you have something that is so important or have a cause that really also resonates with people, it's a really important thing. And I think again like knowing the story of Hanuman, yes, it also really resonated with me, like the stigma of something or like, oh, I have this, how people just have a certain, again, a judgment on something. And it's horrible that a judgment of other people then causes just a young kid to die, and
Mhm.
that's something that I think is also so amazing about what you do because not only do you need finances but you're also spreading awareness and you're changing the system and that is really powerful. So I think
Mhm.
And it
I
is
think
very positive. You're a very positive lamb yourself, Bobbi.
yes, I am.
Yeah.
But I mean, the work is definitely, I mean, it's been a huge learning process for me to go from like, totally different world. I'm not a social worker. I don't know anything about charities or fundraising or anything.
Yeah.
We've just learned as we've gone. But I think one of the reasons why we've been able to keep going and have such great impact results is because we have such amazing local partners. And it's
Yeah.
like, that's been also such a blessing in my life, is to get to really meet and understand and learn about the deeper cultural aspects of Indian society that I will never understand as a foreigner. Like, no matter how many years I live here, how much time I spend here, there's so much that we as foreigners, like,
Yeah.
we can want to help, but we can, and
Yeah.
this isn't just like from one country to another, but we can want to help from where we think help should be given, and actually working with local people who really understand
Yeah.
the situation and the solution has been really illuminating and humbling for me. And I get to just kind of have the best job, that I'm like the little bridge where I get to be with the donors, and we have such an amazing donor community throughout the world. It's like, I love it. It's so inspiring. Just like you said, like, when you fundraise, and it's so humbling to see how generous people are. I'm like constantly amazed, like how when you just ask wholeheartedly, people will give, and to be able to share like so directly, like,
Yeah.
because like you said, we are small, like with such a small, like, it's just like, here's your money, we're putting it there, and then we
Yeah,
take
exactly.
what we did
Yeah.
and we show you, and like people love to be a part of that.
Yeah.
The local people, our in-country partners, and the people all around the world. So it's like, it's totally oneness happening. It's like, I just love seeing how it's yoga. It's
Yeah,
reflective.
that's it. That is the true yoga. People forget about putting your leg in your neck. This is what yoga is. Yoga is this. Yeah, yoga is absolutely path to self-realization, and yoga is compassion. Yoga is, love and compassion for other people. Absolutely. That is what that is. So no, I mean, I wish you nothing but the best with it, and I hope you continue to work with locals, continue to support these kids and all the projects that you're gonna be doing, that you are already doing. So again, we'll put it in the show notes. And just a last thing, I mean, we can just keep talking forever, which we usually do when we see each other, but we can leave it to India. I'll be with you in a few weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I think
really
I'm
great.
going to India as well. Yes, yes, yes. But Bobbi, you're also very passionate, and you're very good at this following thing that I want about to say. You also have a podcast, and I'm a big fan of your podcast. I think you're very good at it. Tell us a little bit about your podcast. Like, what is it? How did you start that? What is that? If like, where did that came from? Tell us.
Yeah, thanks so much. Well, you are also my podcast inspiration. I love doing my podcast. It's called A Curious Yogi.
Mm,
And I actually got inspired from the community that I live in. It's like, I'm the the second youngest person that lives here, and I'm like 38, almost 39. It's
mm,
a community of people that have been living and studying here from all over the world, including India, for like up to 50 years. So
yeah.
some of, like, like my best friend here, she's 75. Like, she's amazing. And they all have these wild stories of like coming to India over land in the 70s, and
Yeah,
like
the story is
meeting
amazing.
somebody, and like then coming to Guru, and like
Yeah.
uh doing yoga since they were 9 because they had some illness. And like, you know, I get so lit up from just hearing how people came on or come on to a spiritual path, that I just wanted to start recording the people in my community. And then it just kind of, then I wanted to start talking to more and more people. So if you do listen to my podcast, it's about half of the conversations are from people that I know personally here in the ashram I stay in, where we have our shared teacher. And I get so inspired from my own sadhana, from my own practice, to hear people's revelations and brilliant understanding of what it means to be a yogi, truly. Like it's really, really inspiring. So I love it.
Yeah,
And I just wrapped season 2. I'm going to take a break now, but yeah, I love it. It's such a cool way to connect and learn
isn't
about
it?
people.
And I
Mhm.
think what you do, what I love, I mean, of course, anything driven by curiosity is amazing. You know what I mean? Like when you're curious, you have many adventures, I always say, because being curious is a really good thing. So I already love the name, but also I think what you do, what I also do with my podcast is, you just want to share a story. Like I'm one of these people that also when I watch a movie, I usually want to watch the movie that's based on a true story. Because
Oh my God, me too.
I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed because I'm like, this really happened? Like this is someone's story, and you need to put like a light on it. You need to put like a spotlight on it, and you want to share it with the world, because a lot of the people, also people that you talked with in your community, specifically also the older people, is so inspiring because you're like, wow, what if that story would have never made it out to the world, and that's what we're doing with our podcast. And I think
Mhm.
that's a beautiful thing, like just sharing stories that need to be heard, conversations that can inspire other people to just live their life fully and happy. And, if we can, just plant a tiny little seeds here and there for people to do that, then our job is done, isn't it, Bobby? I mean, that's,
Yeah. And something that I've really loved about the podcast, maybe you might have had the same experience, is like it's so interesting. Uh, oh, you're frozen.
oh, what's
Oh,
our,
no, you're back.
yeah, I was just still, yeah.
I don't know if you have had this experience, but like meeting people that are attracted to yoga or like living this kind of life that I know you interview people about, there is this kind of thread.
Hmm.
Like my teacher, he often uses the analogy of a mala that like it appears to be many beads separate, but actually traditional malas before there was beads were just one thread tied with 108 knots. So
Yeah,
actually one thread. And have felt that so much with the podcast, like
yeah,
what sparks people to be attracted to yoga or deeper ways of living or understanding this human incarnation. Actually, it's the same spark within many people. It just comes out in different ways, in different experiences, in different expressions. And I think that's really cool to know like all these unique individual stories, but yet there's the one being shining through each and every one of us.
yeah.
And it's been cool to see that thread throughout.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. That's definitely. I think a lot of times it's like I have that sort of, I come to that conclusion of like we all just want the same thing anyway, like
Mhm.
many of us. Like, and we're all very different, but we definitely do want the same things. And, that's what we're out there to do, and I think that I think you're also one of these people that really, I think what's important is that we come here to do what we were meant to do. That is our job. That is our mission. That is our calling to this world. Just do what you
Beautiful.
have come to do, and do it well, and do it with passion, and yeah, and if that means that your life is full,
Yeah.
fine. Just be
Yeah.
content with that, right?
Yeah.
I think you're doing an incredible job, Bobby, with inspiring and encouraging other people. You are such a gift to this world. So and also because I feel what you do is also, like you do some things really karmically, some things you really do for the good, and I'm sure, you also like we try to balance our lives, don't we? Like we're doing something karmically, spiritually, but we also still need to do something to finance ourselves and finance our lives. So I think that you balance that out really well, and you give so much back to this world. So I'm grateful that I know you, and I'm grateful that I was able, and that I can support you and share your story with the world, through this podcast.
Oh, well, you're so sweet. And even when you're speaking, I'm like, I know what you see in me is just a reflection of you because you're
Uh,
also just that same pure heart and, doing so many things as well for the good of other beings.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
I know it's definitely the same. And I think it's also like so important that podcasts like both of ours exist because like we said earlier, you know, it can be isolating to want to start to move towards spiritual elements and, you know, if you know don't have that community around you, like where do you find it? And I think, you know, now there's a lot of things I don't like about how much digital world we live in, but this is actually such a positive platform that can help people that find it to listen and to know like they're not alone and that there are other
Yeah.
black sheep out there
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that are there and awakening. And to awaken means sometimes you have to step out of the status quo, and
Yeah.
that can be a scary, isolating thing. So I think what you're doing, the podcast, and also just, you know, I think we talked about this last time, like we're just uplifting the whole, and we start by uplifting ourselves. And
Yeah.
this podcast, what you're doing also is a great way to just carry that
Absolutely.
torch, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and do you have, so to close off, do you have like, so you had your 2 words for 24, but do you have any sort of big plans for yourself? Or I also love that so many things are 10 years, you know, like you were saying, like 10 years. 10 years ago you came to India. 10 years ago you had your your initiation of your charity. Like, so what's 24 doing for you? Like, what do you want to put out there this year?
Yeah, I think actually for me, for 2024 is going to be more of an inward year. Like I
Yeah.
know I will be teaching and traveling and working, but I really, really want to put more attention into my own sadhana, my own personal practice, and
Yeah.
deepening my understanding of a few scriptures and just kind of go deeper into my own study. And then that's just like kind of where I've been called this year. So,
Yeah, that's good.
mhm,
That's a really good thing. Because I think like we do have to go inward, you know, like specifically when as you were mentioning, your life is full, you have a lot going on. It's the inward that we usually forget because we're always out, 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 on, you know. So, and I think
mhm,
we have to draw inwards to, again, like my coach was saying, everything comes from self-reflection. So it's also good to sort of
mhm,
take time for that, also to go inward and take time to be
mhm.
quiet, take time to be still, you know.
Yeah. And like before you were saying too, you know, about living our purpose, and I really do feel that my main purpose in my life is sadhana and
Yeah.
to realize the nature of the self, and that work happens quietly and alone primarily, and
Yeah.
just to like keep doing that deep work, and then hopefully in going more towards my own personal understanding of yoga and sadhana, I can continue to share it in the way that it's unfolding for me in my sadhana. So that's kind of where I'm at
It's beautiful,
today.
Bobby.
Who knows where it'll be
It'll be
next week?
different tomorrow. Let's ask you again tomorrow. No, but that's
Yeah.
really beautiful, Bobby. And really, I wish you nothing but goodness, and specific with all your projects and with anything you're doing. You know, you have my blessings and Sparky's. He's not on the chair anymore. He's around, but he definitely, my co-host, is sending all of his blessings to you as well. And I can't wait to be with you in 3 weeks. We're together. I can give you the biggest hug.
I
Um,
know,
you
it's
know, I'm
great.
really, because we're going to be back with our teacher Stewart in Rishikesh, and you know, sharing some time with him, being in yoga and being back into Rishikesh and hugging all our cow and doggy friends. I cannot wait for it, and I just have nothing but love for you, Bobby, and I want to thank you so much for your time. And enjoy yourself. Keep spreading the love and the light as you do so magically. Really, thank you so much.
Thank you, sweet sister. You too. You're so amazing also. Thanks for having me and thinking of
Yes,
me.
Bobby. Loved having you. And
Mhm.
everybody that's listening, please, I'll put all the things in the show notes. So everything that Bobby was talking about, we'll put like little links in the show notes. And you know the drill. Be good to yourself, be good to others, especially the animals. Thank you all much. Goodbye. Thank you so very much for listening to Go For Your Life. I love that you listen, so please leave a review or tell your friends about it. You know the drill. Share the love, please. Also, you can follow me on Instagram, Go For Your Life Podcast, and I also have a website, Karotech, KAROTAK.com. Thank you so much for listening, and until next episode, bye-bye! Go, go!